Hiya and welcome again to Patshull Park. So now we're going to talk about part 2. You heard me speak about part 1. If you watch part 1, brilliant, it's all about the pole, you'll love it. Part 2 now is more about the feeder. So feeder fishing at distance, 40 metres. 40 metres is still a decent distance to fish. Here it's probably about 70 metres to the far bank. So I've got a lot of room to fish with. I'm fishing 40 metres because I want to fish in the deeper water and it'll hold a lot more bigger fish. So what we're going to do, we're going to run through the ground baits, the rod, the reel, everything, baiting up, hook length, everything through this video to make you catch more bream and skimmers on these sort of venues on the rod. Right, so we're just going to have a bit of a break from fishing and just talk to you about the feeder mix I'm using. So I'm going to be really selective on this feeder line. So what that means is I'm fishing a pole line, as you've already seen, and then I'm also fishing a feeder line. So the feeder line, I want it to be selective, which means I want to catch bigger fish on it. It's as simple as that. My pole line is for small fish, anything that swims to top my weight up, and then my feeder line is for them bonus fish, bream, maybe a tench, maybe a little carp, something that's going to boost my weight up in a match and give me that bonus element. At the end of the day, if you get a bonus fish, it's going to be 30-40 small fish to catch that big fish. So they are really important in lakes like this. Really simple, nothing crazy about it. I've got a small tin of corn that I've put in water. Now, why do I put it in water? We're in summer, it's warm, it's humid. Your corn can sometimes dry out. You do not want dried out corn. It's not right. It goes hard, the fish will mouth it, they'll feel it's hard and they'll swim away. So for me, always put your corn in a little bit of water. It just helps it soften up. So that's the reason why it's in water. The only other bait I've got is micro pellets, and I tend to use the mainline cell pellets. So they've got a really nice, sweet, fishy smell to them. And when I do my ground bait, you'll see why I use a sweet pellet. So yeah, they've just been soaked for, I'd say 30 seconds. I want to keep them in pellet form. I don't want to mush them down and over soak them. I want to keep them in as individual pellets. So if I put too much water into them, sometimes they just become like a globby mess, and I don't like that. I like to have still like quite a firm pellet, but just like on the outskirts of the pellet's been broken down really. So that's basically all I'm going to be feeding bait wise. Now I'm going to sort out my ground bait. So we've got mainline F1 sweet, F1 dark, and then green supreme. So normally I'll just use those two, 50-50, away you go. It's brilliant. But since I've been testing these, I haven't been with mainline long, and since I've been using these ground baits, I really like this green supreme. It just, nowadays, the amount of bream and stuff that have been caught on like green ground baits and things, you've got to employ it into your ground bait. So this does make quite a greeny dark mix, if you like, these two together. But with the green supreme, what it does is it just makes it pop out, makes it like a nice green colour. So it's all fish meal based. So what we'll do, we'll get mixing the ground bait. So what I do is I just get a pint bait tub into the bucket, and I'm literally just going to put a pint of each in. So there you go, there's a pint into the bait tub. And the massive little tip I can give you is always measure your ground bait out. So when you're fishing natural venues, you've got something to go back to. What I mean by that is if you're just putting like half a bag here, half a bag there, you don't know 100% what mix you've put in. So then there again, another pint into the bucket, and then a pint of the green supreme into the bucket as well. And that's it. It's really simple, really nice and easy, nothing complicated about the mix at all. But when we've done the mix, you'll see why I like this green supreme. It just makes, in fact, what I'll do, I'll mix them up and I'll just show you the difference. So So those two are mixed up together. As you can see, it's like a dark sort of pellety mix, like a dark browny pellety mix really. That's a brilliant mix on its own, but when you see this, it just gives it that little bit more. You know, we're fishing an old lake. It's an old sort of bottom, if you like, silty and nasty, and this just helps it. So just mix all that up, all the dry ingredients, mix it up, and now you can see like little green flakes and nice bits in it and stuff. And it, you know, bream and skimmers, they want this food value in your ground bait, and that's what this gives you. It gives you a lot of food value. F1 Sweet and F1 Dark are very fine. They do have pellets in, but they are a really fine mix. And sometimes this Green Supreme just holds fish in your lake, in your peg, sorry, better. So that's the reason why I use it. It's as simple as that. And then all we do, put them to one side, and then I just want to add water gradually. I'm not a massive fan of flooding ground baits. I don't like to do it. A lot of people do it. This is just how I do it. It's very simple. I just keep the whisking and just add water nice and slowly. Make sure you get into all the corners. Just add all that, the rest of that. Got a decent whisk. Now, as you can see, that's taken on all the water. It's really nice. Slightly over wetted, but I find it better by adding it. If you add a load of water straight away, what happens is your mix comes inert. So what I mean by that is, when you flood your mix, your bait will go in and it will lie on the bottom and nothing will pop up because you've flooded it. So what you've done, you've flooded all the particles in your mix. For me, I don't understand in summer why you want to do that. So for me, I want a mix that's active still. So what I've done is, by adding the water gradually, it still keeps that activeness of your ground bait. So if I've got a ball of ground bait like this that's active, you're going to have bits popping off and particles popping off because they're not really flooded with water. They're still particles. Whereas if you've got a ball that's inert, it's just going to sit there and slowly break up, and there's nothing going to be popping up or anything. And I think in the summer that's wrong. You want a little bit of attraction. You want that ground bait to pop up. You want it to be, you know, you want it to be enticing to the fish. You want to draw them big fish into your peg. And if you've just got a lump of ground bait stood on the bottom like this, there's no attraction. There's nothing. So I want that to pop and fizz and give attraction through the water column and get them fish into your peg. So what we'll do, we'll leave that now for 10 minutes. We'll take all this down to the box and we'll put it into action. Now we've fed the pole line, it's going to give that pole line now a chance to settle. So while I'm doing that now and letting it settle and letting that ground bait settle in my peg, I can feed my feeder line. So this is the line. Remember when we was talking about mixing the ground bait? This is my more selective line. So I want to be putting a decent amount of bait in on this line. So the mix was F1 Sweet, F1 Dark and Green Supreme, all equal measures. But what I've done is I've got a pint of ground bait into a little tub. I've put a few micro pellets in, a few pieces of corn, and all I'm going to do is I've just got a 30 gram solid feeder on, so that's important. Now, a lot of people I see just put a normal cage feeder on like this, or you know, there's all different types of cage feeders and window feeders, and there's another one, a bottom loaded feeder. I carry quite a lot of feeders with me. Now the reason I use this is going to get down to the bottom, and when I strike the bait out, it's going to be in a nice tight area on the bottom. If you use sort of a cage feeder like this to bait up with, what happens is bait comes off the feeder and it actually breaks up. Your feeder breaks up through the water, which is no good, I don't think, for big fish. You want to set a trap. So a big feeder with a nice solid feeder. Yes, there's 2 holes here, but that just helps getting the bait out. It doesn't do anything else. And as you can see, I haven't got a hook link on. So when I'm feeding my peg, I don't want a hook link on. It just interferes things, you get tangles. It's no good. I want to get my bait in nice and quick, get out, get the disturbance out the way, and let them fish settle. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the first scoop in nice and light. I don't want to be compressing it too much. Just compress it nice and light. Have a decent-ish drop. You don't need to go mad. And just take your time. We're fishing 40 metres out. So just literally take your time with it. Hit your clip, drop your rod. Make sure that's hit the bottom. Reel in a little bit. 2 shakes. And it's emptied. And that's it, simple. And again, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to repeat the process time and time again until this is empty. So I'm going for it. I'm not messing about. I'm putting a decent amount of bait in. I want to be selective on this line, so I want to feed the fish. You know, I want to ring that dinner bell. I want to get a lot of bait in. You know, I want to get a lot of bait in the peg. Get that bait in, get it down to the fish. So there's 2 with a solid. I'm going to put 1 more in with a solid, and then I'm going to do something. I'm going to change my feeder. So this now, what I've done is I've replicated really what I've done on the pole line. So remember, we've put that bedding loose over the pole line, but I'm doing it now slightly different on the feeder. I want to get that ball on the bottom, then 3 little bits of ground bait on the bottom that they're gonna sit there with all them particles in. Now what I want is I want to change my feeder, and I want to put a slightly different feeder on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off, and I'll put one of these on. So what this allows you to do is, like I said before, it's got holes in, and it's going to, little bits of ground bait's going to come off on the way down. So what I'm going to do now is, when I fill that feeder up, I'm just going to make sure it's all clean on the outside. I don't want any bits coming off or anything like that. Now what this is going to do, it doesn't look much, but when it goes in, it's going to hit the surface, and literally halfway down probably, it's going to break up. So it's going to break up through the feed, and it's going to sink like a nice little cloud down through the water. So it's going to make a cloud, and because it's got the holes in it, it breaks, it releases the ground bait a lot quicker. So again, I'm just going to put a couple of them in. Again, clean the feeder off. Just a subtle little change, but people don't do it, and it's something that you need to incorporate into your fishing. Again, hit me clip, let that sink. That's sunk, that's hit the bottom. 1, 2, 2 little strikes, and it's emptied. Easy as that. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep feeding, and then and we'll come back when we have our first chuck on the pole. Just going to go in a little bit more depth. The tackle I'm using, it's nice and close up, personal, bends in my personal space a little bit, but I don't mind that. Anyway, so tackle I'm using for this feeder line, really simple. It's nothing overcomplicated. I don't complicate anything really, there's no point. It's a Mavis Signature Pro XS 12-foot feeder, brilliant for casting. We're casting, this rod will do anything from like 40 to 60 metres with ease. It's a really nice tool for that sort of game. Coming down to a 4,000 size reel, really important. You want that cranking power to be able to crank these feeders in, cast the feeders out nice and accurately. 4,000 reel just helps you out massively with that. 012 braid. So the reason why I use braid is bite sensitivity, so bite indication I mean by that. You can see the line, as you can see fish in your peg by like little touches and stuff, but when there's a bite, it's a bite and you know it's on. Another aspect of braid is casting. You know, you can cast, you know, you've seen me casting today. I haven't really been going for it, and it's going 40 metres every time, hitting the clip, dropping the rod. It's really nice, easy. So the only other thing really to say about the rod is it's a 2-ounce tip. So why do I use a 2-ounce tip? A lot of people might look and think, God, that's really heavy, a 2-ounce tip. In a venue like this, it's not. It's basically a medium-ish tip, because if I fished a 1-ounce tip, I've got my tip in the water and I was getting liners before on the feeder and stuff, you'd be striking at them bites because it's absolute rat rounds, and it's just counterproductive. You keep reeling in and casting out and reeling in, nothing's coming back, and it's no good. So that's the reason why I use a 2-ounce tip. If you have a bite on a 2-ounce tip with braid on, it'll fly around no problem, so don't worry about it. And then, so the business end is I've got a piece of, I'd say about 2.5 foot of 10-pound line which attaches to the braid. So all that is really is a little shock absorber, so I'm not fishing braid direct. If I was to, you know, if this was to snap, I could literally just get, you know, a 3-foot piece of line, re-tackle up, and I'm fishing within 5-10 minutes. I'm refishing again. All I've got now is a heli rig. So if I take that off, give myself a little bit of line, I'll explain the heli rig. So put that down. So basically all this is now is a helicopter rig. So as you can see on the line there's a feeder going to a little snap link swivel, a twizzled boom of about 6 inches, to a couple of beads, and in the middle of the beads is a swivel. And all that does when it casts out is the hook bait will spin around the line. So if I like sort of demonstrate that, it'll spin like this. If I hold that rod there like that, it'll spin around the line like this, like basically why they call it a helicopter rig. So that's basically in essence a helicopter rig. Oh God, take that off. Oh, it's all going wrong here, Ben. So yeah, that's a helicopter rig. Better with casting. It doesn't tangle, very rarely tangles, and the massive advantage of it is it's a fixed rig. So if you get any liners, any sort of indication or anything, you know, you're going to hook the fish, because they take off with it, pick the feeder up, you've snarled one. So then the hook link is 0.16 of MVR hook length mono Maver, and that's about 50 centimeters long, comes down to a size 16 hook. And I've literally just got, I've still got the corn on there for you. So it's just a little piece of corn on, to a bait spike, and that's it. That's how easy the setup is. So we've had a chuck with a feeder. I think I might have bumped it. It's either a small skimmer or I've bumped it. Just keep winding, keep the fish coming towards you if there is a fish on. Nah, it's come off. So there's definitely a fish on there, but I don't know, I just think it's a bit, I don't think it's right today. Sometimes you get that, you know, it happens sometimes. I just don't think this feeder line is right. I think if we give it another hour or two, we might be able to get a couple on it, but it's not looking good. So all I'm doing is hair rigging spiking a piece of corn, finding a really big piece of corn, being really selective, and then I've just got 50 centimetres of 016 to a helicopter rig. And then I'm just putting a few micro pellets in, a few pieces of corn, 2-3 pieces of corn, cut both sides off with ground bait, and then introducing that into the peg. So bosh that in. Like I say, we're being really selective on this line, so I don't really expect to catch on this. If I was in a match, probably the last hour. So what time is it now? Let's have a look what time it is now. So we're talking, it's 10 to 2 now, so maybe we'll start getting bites on this at around 3, half 3, something like that. But we're not getting any liners or anything, so I think we've come on it a little bit too early. It's not a mistake, it's just seeing what's in the peg. We've had a little bite, it was a small fish and it come off. But if this was a match situation, what I would do is I'd have 2 or 3 quick chucks like I am doing now. We've lost a small fish, but what you're doing is we was catching small fish, one a chuck on that pole. So it's counterproductive to catch nothing on this feeder and putting nothing in the net. So therefore I would be better off catching the small fish on the pole. Just keep doing that. You know, it might be a case where these bream and skimmers, they don't feed today. It might just be one of them and they're not here. It's a massive expanse of water. They just might not be here, you know, it's one of them. Oh. It could be a small fish on there, maybe. Yeah, see, it's just small fish. That was a proper bite though, that. No, it's pulled out of it. So I think what we're going to do is, I'll have one more chuck on this. And then, have I got a bit of slime up the line there? Ah, so that's a bit of a sign there for you. There's a bit of slime on the line, look. So that was a big liner. Slime on the line. So there's bream there. There's definitely bream and skimmers there. But I think I'm being just a little bit too selective at the moment. But I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Keep corn on. I'm positive in it. I know the bream and skimmers in here love corn, so if there's a decent fish in your peg, you'll definitely catch it by putting the pellets and the corn and the ground bait in. Ground bait's relatively dry. I don't want to over like really wetted up mix yet. There's no need. I just want to get that bait down to the bottom. Just on a bit of a root there or something. Sink the line. So I reckon that was a liner, because we had a lot of rubbish on the line then, slime and that, just above my knot. So there's obviously bream in the area. Little touch then, little tiny touch then, straight away. So this could possibly be a good sign. So I think I'm going to make this my last cast now. If I don't get one this cast, I think what I'll do, I'll put 3 or 4 big feeder falls in again, with corn and micros in it, quite a lot, and I'll just come off it, and I'll leave it. If it was a match situation, I'd put 3 or 4 feeder falls in, try and get a bit more bait down on the bottom, and just leave it, and just keep fishing that pole line, keep them fish going in the net. And then hopefully when you come back to us on this feeder, it'll be skimmer or a bream on. Fingers crossed. So I've come back to you now, and things are starting to happen on the feeder. It's been about 15-20 minutes since the last time I spoke to you, and to be honest, I think it might have come off this. I hope it hasn't, but it might have. It's just no, it's still on. It's just a small skimmer, but getting a lot more indications and a lot more liners now. There's a little skimmer, but the thing is, we're catching these on the pole, so today it's a little bit counterproductive. Cheers, Ben. Today it's a little bit counterproductive what we're doing, because obviously we're catching this stamp of fish on the pole. So, well, no, we're not actually. That's a better stamp fish actually. Yeah, it's just took that. Yeah, look, little tiny skimmer. So yeah, we've just had that skimmer, but it just feels like it's going to happen on it. It feels like we're getting too many liners, and the big liners as well. They're not little liners; they're quite big. So I think there is better stamp fish in the peg. It's just going to be a case of being patient. It's just going to be a case of being patient and having patient casts and sitting on your hands and wait for it to fly around. Which that then, to be fair, that did. It was a proper wrap round, that was. So I think I've just got to be patient. I have 10-15 minute casts, sit on my hands, because there's enough bait out there now. So we've just got to be a little bit more patient. Wait a little bit longer, so I'm just going to introduce a bit more bait now, a bit more corn in, a few micros, just cap it off with a bit of ground bait, just give them a bit of bait to munch on. Every time I look up there's a few blows in the peg, so fingers crossed we can sort of get these bream and skimmers queuing up. Hit me clip, rod down. Sink my line. And just felt a little peck then at the tip. So another nice little tip for you when you're feeder fishing is have a decent roost, like a decent rest for your feeder, especially when you're silverfish fishing, because if it was towing, for example, today, if I put a bend in the tip there now like that and it's towing right round, I can literally just move my tip down the bar and it just makes it so it's not like really tight to your feeder. So yeah, you can literally just keep moving your feeder down the arm and eventually it becomes second nature to you. You'll know where you're going to finish on your roost. Oh, there's a little tap then. So there's definitely now a few fish moved in because I'm getting liners and but in a match situation I never would have come off the pole. It was just too good. You know, it's a fisher chuck there, and that skimmer you've just seen, you know, it's 2 or 3 fish on the pole. Another little liner there then. And if we're having to wait, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on a cast for a fish, me tip's just constantly moving now and getting quite a few liners. But to get that bonus fish, you've got to give it a go. So we'll see. Hopefully, come back in the last hour, and we'll have a few more decent fish in the net. But at the moment, like I say, it's hard to come off that pole if I was in a match, or you know, your pleasure session. It'd be wrong to come off that pole because there's so many fish on it. So I think what we'll do is we'll put a couple more feeder falls out there with a load of bait in. I'll come off it, try and set a trap, and hopefully you'll join me back in the last hour on the feeder and it'll start, oh there's a big liner then. It'll start going round with some decent skimmers. So fingers crossed, let's wait and see, and hopefully we'll bag a few of the decent skimmers and bream that Patshull's famous for. So just as we've introduced them 3 feeder falls, come back on it and it's gone round after 5 minutes of it being in, and this seems to be a slightly better skimmer maybe. Yeah, that's definitely a better skimmer. So it just proves, just changing and keeping something happening in your peg. Yeah, it's definitely a better skimmer, that. Yeah, that's a better one. There we go. That's what we want. That's a better skimmer. So, them 3 feeder falls definitely made a difference. You know, brought a few fish into the peg maybe. See, that's definitely, that's getting on near a pound, I'd say. So there we go, look. Decent skimmer in the net. And there we go. So I think now we've had that, we'll have another chuck. And I think it's now time to be a little bit more patient. Just get my hat on. I was just in the middle of taking my jumper off because it's absolutely sweltering now. So yeah, again, just being really selective, trying to find a really big piece of corn that stands out. And there it is. And then slime all over the line as well, which is a good thing because at the end of the day it means there's fish in your peg, but you have to remove it. You've got to get that slime off your line. If you don't remove it, what can happen is the fish will see the slime and they won't come anywhere near it. So again, just a couple, I'm going to put a couple of grains of corn in this time and not put any micros in. Just see if I can get 1 or 2 of these skimmers feeding. That's a very, very positive sign though. It was in for probably 5 minutes and it's gone round with a skimmer, so it's a really good sign, that is. And conditions, to be honest, aren't the best either now. It's bright sunshine, as you can see, but we've had one that was about 10 ounces, maybe 10-12 ounces I'd say. So I'm just going to be really, really patient, sit on my hands and literally wait. And while I've done that, I was chopping some worms up to introduce on the pole. Just tighten up to that. We're coming now into the last hour, and this is really where crunch time is. So we've just had a bite on the tip. Seems to be a slightly better fish, this one, I think. I think it is. It might just be another one of them 10 ounce to a pound skimmers. Just keep reeling, nice and slow. Just keep it coming back towards you. Like we're literally, it's as if there's nothing in your peg, and then all of a sudden your tip goes round. Really odd for here, because normally there's an awful lot of fish in your peg. And a couple of nice skimmers would be nice to finish on. Not really the stamp we want, but it's a skimmer nonetheless. There you go. So that's literally bigger than anything we've caught really on the pole. So it's definitely worth having this line, but today it's not really produced as it should. I think with it being quite shallow, I think with the wind how it's pushing, we would have been better going over on the other shallows, but we've caught a few fish. I think now it's just going to be a case of sitting, being patient and waiting for some fish to come into the area. And I think what we're going to do is we'll have one more chuck on this, and then we'll have another little flurry on. I might leave the pole actually, because we caught enough on the pole now. Might just sit it out on the tip and see if we can get a big bream or a decent skimmer to end with. So we'll go through, while I'm just sinking my line, we'll go through the setup I'm using. So it's a 4000 size reel with 012 braid on, and then the rod is a Signature Pro XS, so it's Maver Signature Pro XS 12-foot rod, and it's got a 2 ounce tip in. So it's got a 2 ounce tip in because I don't want to be striking at a load of like, see that was a massive liner again, that's on, that is. So that's on. So again, it's only a small fish though, so it's a 2 ounce tip. Oh, it snagged me up, that has. Oh, it's still on. It's a 2 ounce tip, but I don't want to be hitting like liners, and if you have too light a tip in, I just don't like it. I just think it's counterproductive because you're hitting liners and you're hitting the wrong bites and things. You want to make sure that fish is on. If you're reeling 40 metres back, you want to make sure the fish is on. So just keep reeling, the fish is coming towards you. So again, it's a little skimmer. So that's 2 in 2 chucks, so quite quick succession really. So it proves that there's a few fish now coming to the area. No big fish really at the moment, but hopefully we'll snare one or two. So yeah, it's a 12-foot signature excess rod, got a lot of power for casting, but it's nice and soft as well for playing these fish. Then I've just come down to a helicopter rig. So I tend to use a helicopter rig because when you're casting out, the actual hook length will spin, and it's better so the helicopter rig is better because when you cast out, your hook length can spin around the main line. So, and as well, it's a fixed rig, so it's fixed, everything's fixed. You get better bites, you get better hook rates, because obviously it's fixed, the fish hooks against the feeder. And then we've got 016 hook link, 50 centimetre of 016 to a 16 hook, and a little bait spike on a little hair rig, just for single corn, and that's it. Very simple. There's a few fish there now because I've just felt one tug there and while I'm sinking. So like I said before, this little roost now, because I've got quite a bit of a bend in, I can literally just move my tip down the roost, down the rod rest, shall I say. And then that's set with fishing. So that didn't take very long. So what I'm hoping for now is we have a decent finish, maybe get a couple of the nice decent skimmers, pound and a half, as there's a liner straight away. Hopefully with them decent skimmers and bream are about, but it's not looking really that positive at the moment. While my rod's in the water, I think it's a decent time to talk about what's happened with the feeder. So it's not really happened. You know, we've done nothing wrong. I've fished this venue a lot, and you need to be selective fishing for these bream and skimmers. You know, there's no point, you know, putting a few maggots in, and a few dead maggots, a few casters, a few worms. It's just counterproductive. They're not eating that bait anymore. There's a lot of carp anglers on this water. You know, there's two to our left who are, you know, they've got bait boats going out and spods going out and all sorts, and they're putting a hell of a lot of bait in. So these bream are tuned into that, and they are eating what the carpers eat. So for us as match anglers or pleasure anglers, you know, the only baits that I really seem to pick up from the carpers is pellets and corn. I don't want to use boilies because they're just too expensive. You know, they're really expensive, and there's just no need to. So I think one of the reasons why the feeder hasn't really worked today is I just don't think the bream are here. It's as simple as that. I just don't think they're here. Well, yes, we've caught 6 or 7 little skimmers on, probably going to biggest about £1, but normally, you know, you can catch one of these big 4 or 5 pound bream on it, and it gets you out of trouble. But I just don't think it's happened today, purely and simply because they're not here. You know, it's a massive expanse of water. You know, this is just a little bit that you can see behind me. You know, it goes all the way around, past the club, past the old golf club house, right the way around the corner, and then you've got all the deeps all the way around there. So it's a massive expanse of water, and I'm fishing on my own. I'm putting a little bit of bait in. I haven't put an awful lot of bait in. And sometimes they're just not there. You know, fish have fins, they swim. So we haven't done anything wrong. It's just a case of they're just not there. And to be honest, that's the way it goes sometimes. But we've caught some fish on it. I've showed you the way, how to set it up, how to fish it, how to cast, all these different things. And yeah, if you use this principle on any sort of natural venue, you will definitely catch on it. Today it's been a different story. It's been a little bit hard just because the fish aren't here. So I think what we're going to do now, we're going to wrap it up. I'll reel this in and show you some of the skimmers we've caught. What a day we've had at Patshull. So I didn't realise we'd caught all these, to be honest, and just been busy on the pole and chucking the feeder and stuff, I didn't realise. But we've got probably best part of 15 pound of fish there in 3 hours fishing. Really nice day's fishing. Caught some nice skimmers on the feeder like this. Now he's probably pushing a pound, really nice fish. So yeah, we've had roach, perch, skimmers. We've even had a gudgeon in there as well, which I haven't had a gudgeon in here for ages, so that's quite nice. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these back. Thanks for Ben for filming today, really appreciate it. And I hope the channel members have learned something. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. So let's get these back. And there we go, everyone's a swimmer.